It was a wonderful presentation, and thanks for sharing, all the strategies. Now, I would like to, we'll have question and answer towards the end of, all the presentations. So now I would like to invite Mr. Kishan Kumar. He is the Chief Growth Officer at Wavemaker, India's leading content and technology agency. He is part of Wavemaker India Executive Committee and has served at Wavemaker Global Creative Leadership Team. Prior to this, he was the managing director, Maxim Vietnam, a MICA postgraduate with 16 years experience in strategic planning, revenue management, innovation, and mentorship. He led business impacting work for Titan and Tanishq, Britannia, Tata Consumer, Google, Myntra, Acco, Arvind Fashion, and MTR Foods. He is part of various teams that received 150 plus national and international awards, including Cannes. Mr. Kishan is a keen observer of culture and its impact on consumer behavior. He believes in driving organizational growth by unlocking people's potential. His passion includes sports, cinema, music, theater, travel, and food. And he runs a podcast called Alternate Dimensions with daughters aged 9 and 6. Interesting. He is at the sunset of 33-year-long cricket career. So very warm welcome. I think very multifaceted personality. We would like to know about your podcast also. So over to you,
Sure,
Mr.
sure.
Kashyap.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. I think this is probably the 75th webinar I am partnering PR Satish. So hi everyone. Good afternoon. I
I
hope all
hope
of
I
you
hope we got repeated some of these earlier somewhere else.
So good afternoon, everyone, and I think I hope all of you are well, and I hope all of you are looking forward to a weekend on a Friday afternoon. Thank you so much, Professor Yadav, and hi Girish and PR. Thank you, Shiv, for this wonderful opportunity. And I think so. I had a presentation, but somehow I'm not able to share. So, as an agency guy, if you are not with a presentation, you're almost like Virat Kohli without a cover drive. So you can't. You are like or Arjuna without the Pashupatastra. So you're feeling fidgety, right?
Kishan, you can share now. Use enabled.
Is it enabled? No,
Yes,
it
yes.
doesn't say. No, I think I have downloaded the temporary this one on my.
This
On
is
my
not the
it's fine.
full app, I think. Maybe.
Yeah, it's not a full app, so I didn't download the full app. I did. That's fine. I'll like any other agency, guy, I'll manage. I'll talk myself out of the situation. Great. So when this whole topic was brought up and said that how do we discuss on something where you have to make Indians pay for things quality? I think it is next to impossible, I thought, right? But I think an agency guy is probably the best guy to take this up because he's been going through this for his entire life. So I kind of welcomed it, saying that how do you, and it's an interesting and interesting challenge. However, I thought that I will probably look at it from the consumer lens because the panelists here are all experts from the broadcasting and publishing phase and also from the academic world. So I thought maybe I'll take a different lens and I'll take a lens of the consumer and the marketer, right? And see how do we make, are there some ways in which you can kind of help get subscription going in today's times, of course, in the context of the pandemic and all of that. And when I was thinking deeper as to how do we crack this, I said that probably it is important to go behind the why rather than of the how, right? So there is always something deeper with consumers that actually probably will help us to crack this one. So I thought that maybe that's a great way to start this. And so I'm going to put that caveat out there that I'm going to look at it from the consumer lens. And I'm going to, this is not prescriptive. This is not a template. This is not a formula at all. This is all point of views from what I have observed, especially looking at the ecosystem in the last 18 months or so. Right, and then probably it will apply to you. And some of the points PR has already mentioned, so I'm going to be a little repetitive in some of the points, but that's how I'm going to talk about. So and also the other thing is that I've been attending a lot of webinars, seminars, conferences as panelists and audience in the last sort of 2 to 3 years, right? And in the last 18 months, there has been this whole transition of mood from, oh no, come on, man, it's not going to happen, to, oh yeah, it's happening. Okay. Oh man, it's happening. To, oh great, it's happening. Can we do something about it, right? So we are situated in terms of this whole subscription point. It is about, oh great, it is happening, but how do we now take it forward, right? I mean, there are reports. If you look at the CII report, actually, there is a CII BCG report where a recent which came about a few months back, which says that Indians are actually very, very open to, paying for digital content, whether it is on OTT. The news thing is also going forward, especially post the pandemic. So I think the intent is there. I think what helps us to consolidate that further and add momentum is what I'm going to talk about, right? And I think the best thing that could have happened to us is the chief transformation officer, which is COVID. So COVID is actually like the meme was going around during the pandemic. COVID has been the chief transformation officer not only for corporates but also for India. And I think that has made India completely change a lot of things, right? So the way India is shopping has completely changed. The way India is transacting has completely changed. The way India is learning has completely changed. And most importantly, the way India is consuming content is completely changed. So I thought maybe it is important to go behind how has India changed in consuming content, and then probably derive answers to hence how do we help to get monetization going from a subscription point of view. All of us agree that the content consumption has completely changed in the last 18 odd months. So I went and thought about how do we make it a simpler. So I asked 4 fundamental simple questions, because some of the answers to the difficult questions are always in simple ones, right? So I said, who is consuming this content? Is there any shift happening there? What is happening to this content consumption? Any shifts there? Where are these content consumptions happening? And how is this content consumption happening? So if I take the first one, which is who is consuming this content? Now, earlier, let's say, imagine 2 years back, there was this very straightforward, simple sort of stereotypes of content consumption in India, right? Women and daily soaps, men looking at 9 o'clock fights, a lot of people everywhere in the country bleeding blue, morning newspaper and coffee, and there is this whole sort of stereotypes on content consumption just completely gone out of the park, right? So I call these as the old guard, whereas there is a whole host of new guard, which is in our advertising and media language we call them cohorts. It's the most second most used word in the advertising industry after transformation, I think. So there are multiples of cohorts which are consuming content in insane manner, right? Lots and lots of people up north watching Malayalam films and making videos about it. Women going and consuming content, consuming gaming content like mad. 60 plus people addicted to, like my mom, addicted to Hotstar and the OTTs of the world, right? I mean, you can create so many of such examples of new guard who is consuming content in a very, very different fashion, in the most unexpected fashion because of the pandemic and because of choices, right? Pandemic leading to choices. So along with the old guard, which is very easily definable, we all know it demographically, psychographically, all of that. There is this whole new guard which is coming up in many, many ways and consuming content in a manner. So important to look at the new guard of consumption. That's the first point from the who aspect. What is this consumption happening now? So earlier it used to be this very simple way of consumption, right? Which is, there is video and there is word, right? Video in terms of television and video and whatever, and word in terms of newspaper and digital and all of that. Today it is completely different, right? There is video, there is text, there is audio, there is image, there is this and that and the other, right? So within audio, there is streaming and podcasts and this, that, and that, and the other. So there is a whole host of multiplicity of platforms and this thing happening. Secondly, it all used to be lean back and consumption, right? So I'm on my couch and I'm watching content leaning back. Today it is leaning forward and consumption, right? So I'm not only watching and consuming or reading and consuming, but I'm also wanting to be part of it, right? Which is what the interactivity piece that Satish talked about. So leaning back has become leaning forward, so much so that it's almost like snatching. So much of lean forward that sometimes snatching happens, right? So there is leaning forward that is happening. Earlier, it used to be very safe and tried and tested and all of that. Today, people want experiments. So there is far more of experimentation and exciting content that is being asked for by people rather than safe formulaic stuff. Of course, there is a vast majority of television which is continuing the same. Cinema will continue the same and all of that. But there is increasingly, and probably the good part of it is the OTT space, right? Where you can see that there is the whole host of experimentation happening. So consumers are asking for it and people are delivering towards it. So the third is safe, moving to exciting, engaging, risk taking. So risk averse to risk taking in that sense. And the fourth is, okay, here is what you will get, take it, versus let me decide what I want to, and hence give me that. So there is a whole host of consumer centricity that is happening in the way content is consumed. So there is new guard, and there is whole host of, it is beyond interactivity. I would not say it is interactivity. It is about the consumers trying to take control of what they want to consume, right? And that's a big consumer shift. And that is something that we need to keep in mind when, if at all, we have to monetize in a better manner. Now, the third is, where is this consumption happening? Again, there is this whole stereotype of places where consumption can happen, right? There's television in the living room, or newspaper in a certain way, movies on screens and things like that. All that has gone out of the window, right? I mean, you can consume anything, anytime, anywhere. Access is not so much of a problem. Screen size is not so much of a problem. And with the kind of proliferation of data and all of that, I don't think it's so. Consumers have tasted blood, basically, right? So that's the third aspect of it. It's the any effect that I would call it, right? And the fourth is about how it is happening. So all sorts of things are happening, from snacking content to binging content. All sorts of things are happening. So the who, the what, the where, and the how is completely shifting to a new direction, I think. So the answer to how do we hence monetize better will depend on how do you sort of address these things in a better manner, and how do you leverage this. So I kind of put down 5 pointers so that you can, these are all 5 ways to sort of monetize better in my mind from a very, and I'm not going into how each of this can translate into action. I'm only saying these are all slightly macro in terms of pointers, but I think I'll try to deconstruct it with some of the examples, right? So the first one is saying, if we spoke about new guard, it is important to find them and know them, right? Where are the people who are interested in Korean cinema sitting? For example, there is a huge popularity for K-pop in Andhra Pradesh. I mean, it's bizarre, right? Why is that K-pop is getting so much popularity in Andhra Pradesh? There has to be some reason, right? So similarly, finding the new guard and knowing that new guard, what do they like? What kind of genres do they like? What kind of news articles do they like? How do they like news to be presented? Is it short format, descriptive format, all of that. So finding the new guard and knowing the new guard is the first step towards better monetization, because I think that's where I think the first key is. And for that is where I think the data play is important, right? Data is now not only restricted to targeting and understanding your audiences, but also getting the better of what would consumers want, what kind of consumers, how many of them, how large, and then trying to create packages and all. So all the 5 points that I'm going to mention are all then going to work under the umbrella of price, product, and promotion, which I'll come to, right? So the first is finding the new guard and knowing them better through the power of data. The second is, how do you help these consumers to lean forward so that they find value and in the quality and hence pay for it? Because today, if you're not helping them lean forward, you are not going to excite them to pay for it. For example, if Netflix created series with different sort of endings and leaving it to the consumer's hands to choose which one to go to, that is in a way helping them leaning forward. Or there is an example of there are various examples where the leaning forward is given to in the hands of the consumer, right? So how do you help them lean forward is something that is important from the monetization point of view. The more you help them lean forward, the more it will help you to monetize better, is my view. The third is how do you join them in the self-expression, right? For example, the content that people watch is just a means to an end. It is not the end. The content that you watch is a means to the end of your self-expression, the person you are. I mean, think about it, right? I mean, the content that you are watching, you are experiencing, you are engaged with are in a way an extension to your personality, your interests, your self-expression, right? So if you are helping consumers to help them self-express themselves, you are probably going to get better monetization because you are understanding their need to self-express. So, for example, there is an interesting daily soap that was done in Tamil Nadu by Wicket and Group M. We did this together. It was a daily soap that ran on YouTube, where a lot of it was based on consumer interactions. So it was a daily soap on digital, and it ran on a lot of consumer interactions based on how they felt, what the storyline is, and things like that. And it is, in a way, it is self-expression, right? And that self-expression, for example, why is that in digital there is a citizen journalist sort of a thing works better than in television, for example, right? So those are the things that probably helping them in their self-expression will help us to monetize better. That's the third point. Fourth point, I think, is something that probably is difficult to do. Very easy for me to say as an agency guy, but I'm saying let go of the control. Most of the publishers or creators or broadcasters who are the owners of the content need to let it go. You are only creating it and letting it go rather than keeping it, because the more you make consumers own it, the easier it will be for you to monetize it. That's the way I feel. So if you let go, if you let go more, I think you'll be able to find more and more people coming towards you to help you monetize better. And the fifth is be any ready, right? It can be any time, any format, anywhere. So if you are finishing an IPL match at 11:30, you need to be prepared to give a really interesting analysis video at 11:30. You cannot wait for that for the next morning, right? So it is anytime, anywhere, any format. And that's something where is very important. The flexibility and the agility as somebody who is a creator, publisher, broadcaster, anybody for that matter, is extremely important. And so these are the 5 points, right? Finding and knowing the new order. How do you help them lean forward? How do you help them self-express? Letting go and be any ready is for the 5 things. And then you work around the price, product, and promotion. So like what PR mentioned, the Amazon video is a great example of a great product combination which excites people to pay and take, right? So for example, I wanted to always get Mubi as a channel, but it was too expensive. But when it came on Amazon Prime, Amazon video channels, I got it, right? Because it was much cheaper there, right? So things like that. Or pricing, and I think India has done some great pricing, whether it is Netflix doing India-centric pricing or anybody's doing it. So pricing is important. Pricing is multiple kinds of pricing probably need to be done based on who are you looking at, who are you targeting, who's your new guard, right? And promotion, of course, you need to promote it based on what is relevant for them. So that's what I think. And I think without the deck, I thought I managed reasonably well. This is again based on my observations and views. I'm happy to take questions in the end.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kishan. I mean, that was a wonderful presentation. And in fact, the first lesson which our students have got it is that even if you do not have access to your presentation, you should be able to deliver well. So that was wonderful. And all the points which you have raised, and especially like looking at it from the consumer's lens, that is something which is very important. And all the 5 points which you have made makes a lot of sense. Of course, it's a very difficult subject. I mean, we can't say that this one thing is going to work, but yeah, that's a complex issues, and we'll be taking questions and we'll be discussing about this thing in detail. So thank you so much. But we would like to know about that podcast which I mentioned while reading.
Oh yeah. Okay. So I do a podcast called Alternate Dia Mentions. My daughter's name is Dia.
Okay.
It's on Spotify and all the platforms. It started off as a joke where she's very much interested in reading and history and mythology and all of that. So it was just a chat around different topics where she talks and I try to fool around. It's just simple as that. So we have done season 1 with about 12 episodes. Season 2 started. We talk about various things from mythology to her 5 top favorite television shows to she fights for gender equality. So there is an episode called it's a broadcast. It's not a podcast. It's a protest cast by her on gender and all of that. So general goof. So I am the comic element. She's the content. So
Okay. Right. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah.
So